What's up? How we doing? This week we get to talk about some of the coolest stuff all semester that we've talked about, which is stem cells and cancer. And my goal is that you have a better understanding about what these things are than most people on the planet. These are things that you hear about, you experience, and it all comes at us. But I'm going to try to keep this as simple, as short as possible, and give you just like a back of your pocket. You'll be able to understand what this stuff is. What are stem cells? What actually is cancer? And they're really so interrelated. Um, okay, so I want to go back to this video that we watched here about a salamander developing. And we all started off as this, right? As a single cell, and then it divides. That first cell is a stem cell. These are stem cells. These can become any cell still in the body. And you see what stem cells do is they divide a lot. They can become other cells and they divide a lot. That's really what a stem cell is. And there's different kinds. But I wanted to go squirt a little head to this part here. We got the spinal cord forming, folds up. And then right here, actually, you can see all these cells here actually underneath crawling around. And these are still a type of stem cell. And they're crawling to become, they're trying to reach an area where they'll become the cell that they're going to be. Okay, so they're crawling around to get to where they need to be to become the cell that they need to be. It's like they're commuting to work. Okay, so what is a stem cell? Well, we talked quite a bit about it in last week, right? This right here, right there. I've got it right there. The embryo or the zygote, a stem cell, this is a cell that can become every cell type in our body. So we all start off as a single stem cell. Okay, so we all start off as a single stem cell. And then that cell can become other different types of cells. So we had that single cell, like this, like that I just showed you. Boom. So zygote or embryo. Okay, and then that splits up and divides a bunch. Let's say now that becomes, let's say, 4 cells. This might be an 8 cell. It's fine. Doesn't really matter. Oops. Boop. Boop. Okay. Now this is like a 4 cell embryo. And then when it's 1,000 cells, there's little crawly cells. And this continues to divide until it becomes a human with all these different kinds. These are all the same. These cells, 4 cell embryo, all are still stem cells. All can become any cell in the body. Okay. And this is called an omnipotent stem cell. Omnipotent meaning all powerful. That's what that means. This means all powerful. It's like everywhere powerful. Omnipotent stem cell. Oops. Okay. And eventually this becomes a human, which has a head and arms and legs and it's got things like a brain, and it's got things like intestines, and it's got things like a heart, and things like a lungs. So this cell here can become all these different cells. So now we have a adult human with many different types of cells. How did that occur? Well, I'm going to give you a little hint. We're going to understand that by the end of this. Like how is it that a stem cell becomes a heart cell? Or a brain cell? Or a bone cell? Like how does that happen? What's going on there? Like how did we go from this cell that can become all cells to now it's these specialized different cells that have specialized functions? Well, let's kind of like back it up a little bit. And let's take a little stem cell. We'll draw it in this kind of nice. And it's one of these little crawly guys. We're going to draw him a few times throughout this, but we'll draw him. A nice little crawly stem cell. So one of those ones that I showed you in that salamander embryo that are crawling around the body early on in the embryo. And they're saying, hey, I'm going to go become this cell or whatever. I don't have time to go into all the details of this. But let's say we take this cell and it crawls to 3 different locations. And in one of these locations, it's a soft environment. It's a soft environment. Soft environment, real soft. Boy, that one was soft. Doesn't even have a single neck tattoo. Okay? Then we got a medium stiff environment. And then we got a stiff environment. Like the extracellular matrix is really stiff. So for example, soft, they have a lot of elastic fibers, mix of like collagen and elastic, lots of collagen. Okay? Very stiff. Maybe let's go all the way back here. Real stiff environment in an embryo. Something like this. Going back to the skeletal system. There we go. A lot of collagen fibers. Where did we find those? Where the bones would form. Okay. Right? Starting to make sense? Look at that connection there. All the way back to the skeletal system. So, this stem cell, this little crawly stem cell, crawls to a stiff environment. If it crawls to a stiff environment, guess what it becomes? It's going to become we looked at these a bunch in lab. Don't know if you remember these. These are little osteocytes, aka a bone cell. Okay. So in a stiff environment, it will then become a bone cell, an osteocyte. Remember, these little cellular tentacles go through things called canaliculi. So it'll become a bone cell. If it kind of goes to a medium stiff environment, maybe it's a mixture of elastic and collagen fibers. Oh, what might it become? What do you think? What's this spindly looking guy? that I'm drawing there. Interesting. Yes. Yes. Applause. Boom. Become a muscle cell. Smooth muscle in that case. Muscle cell. Because it doesn't have striations. Come on, you guys know this. It'll become a muscle cell. And then if it's in a real soft environment, what might it become? Let's see. Stop me when you know it. Become a nerve cell. Isn't that interesting? So the environment that a stem cell finds itself in. The environment that a stem cell finds itself in dictates or determines the type of cell that it will become. And it's actually, there's multiple factors, but one of the biggest ones is the mechanical stiffness of the environment tells the cell what to become. And I'm not going to draw all this out, but what's crazy is that these little crawly stem cells that I showed you crawling around that salamander are born with cellular cytoskeletal machinery that's either it likes to pull on a soft environment, or it likes to pull on a medium environment, or it likes to pull on a stiff environment. So the machinery is built slightly differently. And when it if it really likes to pull on the stiff environment, it'll crawl through soft stuff and it'll never be pulling at this like rhythm that makes it happy. Because it's got real strong machinery. But once it finds a stiff environment, then it says, okay, now I'm going to stay here. So it's born with an innate knowing to find the environment in which it's supposed to be in. That fucking blew my mind when I learned that. That there's slight differences in the way each one of your stem cells is made that predetermines which environment it shall find and rest in order to become what it needs to become. And it's its environment that then tells it what type of cell to become. I know I just spit a lot of game at you, but that's some pretty mind-blowing stuff. That it's like molecular determinism. Okay? And it also reminds me then of this, the environment tells the cell what to be. And I don't think I have any notes on that. No, because I did that all the way back to this first lecture. Yeah, no. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I'll be right back. Okay, so I don't know if you remember this. I'm sure most of you do. But in the same way that the rat baby's response to anxiety was controlled by its environment, from how many licks it got from mom. So you get a lot of licks from mom, you become a relaxed rat. You get a few licks from mom, you become an anxious rat. So here we have at the level of the organism, its environment kind of controlling what it becomes. And that's tied to the molecular environment where many licks from mom opens up this gene, so now we have a relaxed rat. Few licks from mom, we have this closed gene. And so we have an anxious rat, very high anxiety response. So we have at the level of the organism, we have the environment telling the organism what it shall be. And at the level of the cell, we have the exact same thing happening. At the level of the organism, we have the environment telling it what the organism will become. And at the level of the cell, we have the environment telling the cell what it will become. Very kind of mind-blowing stuff here. Changed my entire view of the world when I learned these two things and was able to connect them. Okay? All right. Okay, there we go. Okay, so stem cells. What are they? Let's just define these. What do they do? What are stem cells like? So stem cells are cells that can become other cells. Okay? They can become specialized cells. That can become specialized cells. Specialized cells. Okay, now what is cancer? I want to connect these two. What are some characteristics of this cell that I've shown you here? Especially early on, right here. Boom. That cell is dividing a lot. It doesn't have a specific job now other than to divide, and it can change. As it goes on, it can change into other cells. Okay? Stem cells divide, multiply. They can multiply. Multiply. That's the word I want. Multiply. Multiply. That's what I'm looking for. Stem cells multiply. Sorry, I'm like in my mode right here. Stem cells multiply. All right? They can also change identities. I can't even spell. They can also change identities, so they can become different cells. / become different cells. And there's another key kind of aspect. A lot of our cells die, but stem cells stick around. Stem cells remain youthful. Okay? All right. What? Why am I telling you any of this? All right. Well, let's do this same thing. Stem cells multiply. They can also change their identities. And they remain youthful. All right, well, what about cancer? What about cancer? We'll do it in pink. Red seemed a little too offensive for me. Cancer cells. What is cancer? Well, cancer. We have such a negative connotation with it because that's what we call it. Cancer cells, they're just your cells. They've gone a little rogue. Cancer cells multiply. They can also change identities / become different cells. And cancer cells, you guessed it, remain youthful. What does that mean? It means they can continually stay alive. They don't age. So what I hope you get from this is that cancer cells are cells that have gone back or reverted to their stem-like nature. If you just look at it from a cellular viewpoint, A cancerous cell is just a cell that's gone back home. It's just gone back to what it once was. Because it all started off as this, and then it became a intestine cell. But really, it's just kind of reverting back to this stem-like nature. There's been some error that has made it more stem-like. That's what cancer is. These are really one and the same. It's just we don't want stem cells forming from our intestine cells, and we'll talk about why. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll end it there. I'll come back. I'm going to talk about stem cells and how we know what we know about them, a couple little interesting things about them, and then I'm going to talk briefly on cancer, guys. Hope you enjoyed that, because I love this stuff. I would love to teach a whole class specifically on this topic. Okay, I'll see you in the next one.